Welcome to the green attack path, video 1 of traffic signaling. Just a review from the previous technique, we built some PHP code that would listen on UDP port 10,000. And then we added a PHP reverse shell to that code so that after putting in an IP port, then we could execute that section of the code to send the IP import to the reverse shell. We tested it on Kali, and we verified that we could get a reverse shell. Now we're going to take that code and move it over to the compromised web server. So let's look at that really quick. So I'm going to come back to here. And I'm going to SSH Gary over 10.27.20.66. If you remember, we set up the SSH key, the authorized key, so it allows us to log in without a password. We should put a password on the key, but we have not. So now we're on the box. We don't have root at the moment, so we do want to escalate to root. So we can do --p. One thing that we could do is if we look in here, if we go home Gary .sh and look at the authorized keys file, I'm just going to copy this. And because I'm now root, I'm going to go to the root directory. And let's see if there's a .sh folder. I don't see one at the moment. So we're going to create one with 600 permissions. So make dir.sh and then chmod 700.sh. Go into SSH, and then we're going to echo our key into an authorized keys file. And when you're doing this in an actual pen test or red team, there might be other authorized keys there. If that is the case, make sure you back up the file and then make a change, or do a double > sign so it appends to the end of the authorized keys file. You don't want to overwrite keys that may apply to backups or anything else. So now I'm just going to check and make sure that authorized keys file was created, and it was. I want to check the permissions on it because they're too broad at the moment. So I'm going to say chmod 400 on the authorized keys file. And I'm going to look at it, and now it's read only. So I'm actually going to exit back to my Kali box, and instead of connecting as Gary, I'm now going to connect as root. And it lets me right in. That just provides root access. I don't have to escalate or do anything. Another way to just jump right to root, having that SSH key there. Now if I go under var html, there is a file called monitor.php. And this contains the PHP code that we built in the last technique, which if we look, it listens on UDP port 10,000, it reads the IP and port, and then we'll pass it into our PHP reverse shell that we have in the code. So what we now need to do is we need to build the service. So if we come back here, there's a website that you can reference. I've linked it here in the code. And when you visit this website, this Benjamin Morrell goes through and teaches you how to create a Linux service with systemd. And he builds a little PHP program that does rot13. If you run into issues, you could fall back to this and test with his program. Real quick, he goes through and tests it just like we did on our Kali box. And this is the code that you need to create that into a systemd service. Notice where the file is placed. It's placed in etc systemd system, and then we're going to call it monitor.service. So let's go back to here. We're going to cd into etc, systemd, and then system. And this is where we want to put the service file, and I have it typed out already. Over here, let's see here. Huh. I wonder how that text appeared. Oh, not that one. Monitor this. I'm not sure how these two lines came about. I'm just troubleshooting here. So that's all we need. And I'm going to run the service as root. So if we connect and get our PHP backdoor, we will have root privileges. The description, I'm going to call it PeeWee monitoring service. So I'm going to go ahead and cat monitor service. I'm going to copy it from here and come over here and do vim monitor.service. Of course, I could download it using an HTTP server, but I'm just going to copy it over. Now that it's in place, I can run systemctl status on monitor. And it says it's loaded, but it's inactive and dead. So in our next video, I'm going to enable the service or set it so every time this machine boots that it enables itself. And then I'm going to start the service. So I'll see you then.